Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Easy English Podcast. I am Hannah, and as always, I am here with my co-host, Alex. How are you today, Alex?
Hi, Hannah. I am doing great, and I am so excited for today's episode. Today, we have a very special, slow, and beginner-friendly story for our listeners. It is a story about a common situation, but with a bit of drama.
Yes, a little bit of everyday drama. We are going to listen to a story about a character who borrows a coworker's umbrella during a sudden downpour. But then, oh dear, they accidentally leave it on a crowded train. We will learn how they explain the mistake and how they offer to replace it.
That is such a classic situation, Hannah. I think almost everyone has lost an umbrella at least once in their life. Before we start the story, let us look at a few key words that will help our listeners understand everything perfectly.
Great idea, Alex. Our first keyword is downpour. A downpour is a noun. It means a lot of heavy rain that starts very suddenly. For example, we got caught in a sudden downpour on our way to the supermarket. It is not just a light rain, it's a lot of water very quickly.
Exactly. A downpour can soak you in seconds. Our second keyword is to borrow. When you borrow something, you take it from someone with the promise that you will return it later. For example, can I borrow your pen for a minute, please?
And, of course, the opposite of borrow is to lend. The other person lends it to you. In our story, a coworker lends our main character an umbrella. Now, let us introduce the main character of our story today. Her name is Sarah.
Sarah works in a busy office in the middle of the city. She is very organized, but sometimes she gets a little distracted when she is tired. It was a Tuesday afternoon, around 4 o'clock, and Sarah was sitting at her desk typing on her computer.
Yes, the sky outside was bright and clear during the morning, but by 4 o'clock, things changed completely. Sarah looked out of the window and saw dark, gray clouds covering the sky. Suddenly, tap, 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 rain started to hit the glass.
And it was not just a little rain, Hannah. Within minutes, it became a complete downpour. The rain was coming down so hard that Sarah could barely see the street below. Water was splashing everywhere.
Oh, I know that feeling. You look out the window and think, oh no, I don't have my umbrella today. And that is exactly what happened to Sarah. She opened her bag and searched inside. She looked under her desk. No umbrella.
She realized she had left her favorite red umbrella at home on the coat rack. She felt a bit worried because she had to take the train home at 5 o'clock, and the train station was a 10-minute walk from the office. Walking for 10 minutes in that heavy downpour would mean getting completely wet.
Yes, she would be soaked. Just then, her coworker, David, walked past her desk. David is a very kind and helpful colleague. He saw Sarah looking worriedly out the window and stopped to talk to her.
David asked, "Are you okay, Sarah? You look a bit stressed." Sarah sighed and said, "Yes, I forgot my umbrella today, and look at the weather outside. It is pouring. I don't want to get soaked on my way to the station."
David smiled warmly. He is always prepared. He said, "Don't worry, Sarah. I have 2 umbrellas under my desk today. I have my big black golf umbrella, and I have a smaller, bright green one. You can borrow the green one. Just bring it back tomorrow."
That was so nice of David. Sarah was incredibly relieved. She thanked him repeatedly. She said, "Oh, David, thank you so much. You are a lifesaver. I promise to take good care of it and bring it back to you first thing tomorrow morning."
You are a lifesaver is a wonderful English idiom, isn't it, Alex? It means someone has helped you out of a very difficult or annoying situation. It does not mean they literally saved your life, but it feels that way because you are so grateful.
Exactly. It is a very common phrase to use when someone does you a big favor. For example, if a friend gives you a ride to the airport when you are late, you can say, "Thank you. You are a lifesaver."
So Sarah took the bright green umbrella from David. It was a nice, sturdy umbrella with a curved wooden handle. At 5 o'clock, she packed her bags, said goodbye to her colleagues, opened the umbrella at the office door, and stepped out into the pouring rain.
The umbrella worked perfectly.
It kept her dry and comfortable as she walked through the splashing puddles to the train station. She felt so lucky to have a friend like David who lent her his umbrella. But as we know, this is where the trouble begins.
Oh yes, the trouble starts now. Sarah arrived at the train station. It was the rush hour, which is the busiest time of the day when everyone is traveling home from work. The station was extremely crowded. People with wet coats and dripping umbrellas were pushing past each other, trying to get onto the trains. It was a bit chaotic.
I can picture it perfectly. Rush hour is a great term for our listeners. It refers to the busy times in the morning and evening when people travel to and from work or school. And dripping means water is falling in small drops. So all those wet umbrellas were dripping water onto the station floor, making it slippery.
Exactly. Sarah carefully folded David's bright green umbrella. She shook it gently to get the extra water off, and then she walked onto her train. The train carriage was packed. Packed is another word for very, very crowded. There was almost no space to move.
Yes, a packed train is not very comfortable. Sarah had to stand up because all the seats were taken. She held onto a metal pole with one hand so she wouldn't fall when the train moved. In her other hand, she held the green umbrella by its curved wooden handle.
But after a few minutes, her arms started to feel really tired. The train was warm and stuffy, and she was carrying a heavy backpack. She looked around for a place to put the umbrella. Just above her head, there was a metal luggage rack. A luggage rack is a shelf above the seats where passengers can put their bags or coats.
Ah, the luggage rack. That is always a risky place to put things. But Sarah thought it was a good idea at the time. She reached up and placed the bright green umbrella safely on the rack. She thought, perfect. Now my hands are free and I can relax for the rest of the journey.
She did relax. In fact, she took out her phone and started reading an interesting article. She completely forgot about the rain outside. She forgot about her busy day. And most importantly, she forgot about the green umbrella sitting on the rack right above her head.
This is a classic mistake. When we get distracted by our phones, we lose track of what is happening around us. To lose track of something means to forget about it or stop paying attention to it. For example, I was reading a book and I lost track of time. Sarah definitely lost track of the umbrella.
She really did. The train stopped at several stations. More people got on, and more people got off. The carriage remained packed and noisy. Finally, the automated voice on the train announced, "Next station, Oak Park. This is Oak Park." That was Sarah's station.
Oh no, this is the moment. When she heard her station name, she realized she had to move quickly. The train was still very crowded, and she had to push her way through the crowd of people standing near the doors to get off in time.
Yes, she was in a big hurry. She grabbed her backpack, put it on her shoulders, and squeezed past 3 tall men. The train doors opened with a loud hiss. Sarah stepped out onto the platform. She took a deep breath of the fresh, cool evening air and felt so happy to be home.
But that happy feeling did not last very long, did it?
No, it did not. The doors of the train closed behind her. Beep, 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 clack. The train slowly started to roll away, moving down the tracks and into the dark tunnel. Sarah stood on the platform, and she suddenly looked down at her hands.
And her hands were empty. No green umbrella. She looked up at the train windows as the train sped away, but it was too late. The train, with David's bright green umbrella still sitting quietly on the luggage rack, was gone.
Exactly, Alex. It was completely gone. Her heart sank. You know that terrible feeling in your stomach when you realize you made a big mistake? That is exactly what Sarah felt right there on the platform. She stood frozen, staring at the empty tracks. She thought, "Oh my goodness, how could I be so careless? That was David's favorite umbrella."
That is such a sinking feeling. We have all been there. It is a mixture of panic and deep regret.
The word regret means feeling sad or sorry about something you did or did not do. For example, I regret leaving my coat at the restaurant. Sarah definitely regretted putting that umbrella on the luggage rack.
She really did. She walked home in the light drizzle, feeling very unhappy. She did not even mind the rain on her face anymore. She was just so worried about how to tell David the next morning. She kept practicing the conversation in her head. She wanted to be extremely polite and honest.
This is a great point for our listeners. When you lose something that belongs to someone else, the best thing to do is to be honest immediately. Do not try to hide it or make up a strange lie. But how do you start that kind of conversation? It can be so awkward and difficult.
It is very awkward. Sarah decided that she would not wait for David to ask about it. She wanted to approach him as soon as they arrived at the office. In English, when you approach someone, it means you walk up to them to speak to them. For example, I approached the manager to ask a question.
Yes, approaching them first shows that you are responsible. So, the next morning, Sarah arrived at work a little bit early. Her heart was beating fast. She sat at her desk, waiting. Soon, she heard the elevator beep and David walked into the office. He looked cheerful, holding a warm cup of coffee.
Sarah took a deep breath, stood up from her chair, and walked over to David's desk. She did not hesitate. In English, to hesitate means to pause before doing something because you are nervous or unsure. For example, please do not hesitate to call me if you need help. But Sarah did not pause. She went straight to him.
That takes courage. So what were her exact words, Hannah? How did she start this difficult apology?
She started by saying his name and asking if he had a quick minute to chat. She said, "Hi, David. Do you have a quick moment? I need to tell you something and I feel absolutely terrible about it." This is a very natural way to prepare someone for bad news. It lets them know that something went wrong, but in a quiet, respectful way.
That is a perfect opening. Using the phrase, "I feel absolutely terrible about it," shows sincere emotion. Sincere means genuine and real. If you just say, "Hey, I lost your umbrella, sorry," it sounds like you do not care. But saying, "I feel absolutely terrible," shows you understand that you made a mistake and care about their feelings.
Absolutely. David looked a bit surprised, but he was very polite. He put his coffee cup down and said, "Sure, Sarah, what's going on?" Sarah then explained exactly what happened, step by step, without making excuses. She did not blame the crowded train or the weather. She took full responsibility.
To take responsibility means to accept that you are the one who caused the problem. For example, he took responsibility for the broken window. It is a very mature thing to do. So, how does she explain the loss of the umbrella to David?
She said, "Yesterday, when I took the train home, it was incredibly crowded. I put your green umbrella on the luggage rack above my head so it wouldn't get crushed. But when my station arrived, I had to rush to get off the train. And in my hurry, I completely forgot to grab it. I am so sorry, David. I left your umbrella on the train."
That is a very clear and honest explanation. She explained the why, putting it up there to protect it, but she did not use that as an excuse for forgetting it. And then what did she do next? Did she just leave it at, "I am sorry"?
Oh, definitely not. A good apology always has two parts. First, you say you are sorry and explain what happened. Second, you offer a solution or a way to fix the mistake. In English, we call this making amends or making things right. Sarah did exactly this.
Yes, that is the most important part of an apology when you lose or break someone's property. You must offer to replace it or pay for it. What did Sarah offer?
She said, "I know how much you liked that bright green umbrella. I would love to replace it for you. Can you tell me where you bought it? Or can I buy you a new one of your choice online today?" This was a fantastic way to handle it. She did not just offer money, she offered to do the work of finding and buying the replacement herself.
That is so thoughtful. It shows she wanted to minimize the inconvenience for David. Inconvenience is a great word. It means trouble or extra effort caused to someone. For example, we apologize for the inconvenience caused by the late train. By offering to buy the new umbrella herself, Sarah was saving David from any extra trouble.
Exactly. And do you know how David reacted, Alex? He listened quietly, and then a big smile came over his face. He actually started to laugh a little bit.
Really? He laughed? Why did he laugh? Was he happy she lost it?
No, not because he was happy she lost it, but because he was so touched by how seriously she was taking it. He said, "Sarah, please, don't worry about it at all. It was just a cheap umbrella I bought at the convenience store last year. It was not expensive or special at all."
Oh, what a relief. Hearing that must have made Sarah feel so much better. But even if it was a cheap umbrella, the fact that Sarah apologized so beautifully made a huge difference. It showed what kind of person she is. Honest, responsible, and caring.
It really did. It changed a potentially awkward situation at the office into a moment of connection and trust. And you know what Sarah did? Even though David said it was just a cheap convenience store umbrella, she still brought him a brand new, high-quality, wind-proof umbrella the very next day. She also attached a small note that said, "Thank you for your kindness," along with a small bar of chocolate.
That is wonderful. She went above and beyond. Above and beyond is a great English idiom, by the way. It means to do more than what is expected of you. Sarah didn't just buy a cheap replacement, she bought a better one and added chocolate. I think David must have been very happy with how everything turned out.
He was. He actually told her it was the best umbrella he had ever owned. So a rainy, stressful day ended up bringing two coworkers closer together as friends. I love stories like that because they show us how powerful a good apology can be.
Me too, Hannah. Now, since this is Easy English Podcast, let's take a few minutes to look closely at some of the fantastic vocabulary and expressions we use in today's story. We had some great words for weather, for feeling stressed, and for making apologies. Let's start with the weather. Do you remember the word downpour?
Yes, a downpour is a noun. It means a lot of heavy rain falling very suddenly. It is not just a light rain or a drizzle. A drizzle is very light, gentle rain, but a downpour is heavy, strong rain that gets you completely wet in seconds. For example, you could say, "We got caught in a sudden downpour on our way to the supermarket."
That is a perfect example. And when that heavy rain starts, we often say it is pouring. You can say, "It is pouring outside," which means it is raining very hard right now. Another great word we use was soaked, S-O-A-K-E-D. If you get caught in a downpour without an umbrella, you will definitely get soaked.
Exactly. Soaked means extremely wet or completely wet through your clothes. An example sentence is, "My shoes are soaked because I stepped in a deep puddle." Puddles are those small pools of rainwater that form on the ground. Children love to jump in them, but adults usually try to avoid them.
They certainly do. Now, let's move on to the vocabulary for apologies. This is incredibly useful for everyday life. In our story, Sarah felt guilty and terrible. Guilty means feeling bad because you think you have done something wrong. For instance, I feel guilty about eating the last piece of cake. Have you ever felt that way, Hannah?
Oh, all the time, Alex, especially if it is chocolate cake. But feeling guilty usually leads us to apologize. In English, when we apologize, we often start with, "I am so sorry, but," or "I have some bad news." In the story, Sarah said, "I have to apologize." This is a slightly more formal way to introduce an apology.
Yes, "I have to apologize" is very polite and professional. It shows you are taking the situation seriously. And then she explains what happened clearly. She didn't make excuses like "the train was too crowded" or "someone pushed me." She just stated the facts. "I left it on the train." This is an important part of a good apology, taking full responsibility.
That is so true. Taking responsibility means accepting that you are the one who made the mistake without blaming others.
Another key phrase Sarah used was, "I would love to replace it for you." To replace something means to get a new item to take the place of the one that was lost or damaged.
Yes, replace is a very active verb. I will replace it is much stronger than just saying I am sorry. It shows action. You can use it in many situations. For example, I accidentally broke your coffee mug. Let me replace it for you. It shows you want to make things right.
And finally, we have David's reaction. He said, "Please don't worry about it at all." This is a very common and friendly way to accept an apology. Other ways to say this are, "No problem," "Don't mention it," or "It's really not a big deal." These phrases help the other person relax and feel less guilty.
Those are all wonderful phrases to keep in your vocabulary notebook. Well, we have covered a lot of great English today, from sudden downpours to beautiful apologies. I hope this story helps you feel more confident the next time you need to apologize or offer a solution in English. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Easy English Podcast. Keep practicing, stay dry, and we will talk to you next time.